Hey, how's it going? I'm Danny, also known by some of my friends as the Red Viking. I started this channel basically for spiritual preparedness, but as well as the physical preparedness for the end times. We are going to face some hard times, and this channel is all about preparing God's people for what's to come. Alright, so today I wanted to talk about God's law, which is the Torah, his saying, his testament, and how it was actually not only given on Mount Sinai. It was given throughout the Bible, and the laws themselves existed even before Mount Sinai and even before creation. They existed in heaven too. And I know, it's like, what? This is not... Well, bear with me. Let me show you what I mean. This whole idea started after I read an article. It was a really short article, and it was speaking about how Noah was eating reptiles. And this article was written by a scholar, an Israeli or a Jewish professor, okay? And I was really surprised. It contained a lot of error, but basically what the article says is, since God gave Abraham, it's in the Genesis 9, chapter 9, amazing chapter, by the way. It has so much in that chapter, but I'll get to some of those points. So when Noah, basically that's what the article says, when Noah was finally let out of the ark, God told him, you can eat all of the animals and all of the fishes of the sea, and there will be food for you. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the camera is a little bit moving because I need a tripod, but sorry. Anyway, so yeah, and then people say, well, you see, God is telling Noah that he could eat anything he wanted, you know, anything that crawls on the ground, especially. That's how this article got the idea of, well, you see, Noah ate reptiles, you know. The Hebrew word there is refesh. Refesh chaya, it's a crawling, living thing. It can be, sure, it can be a snake, it can be a reptile, it can be different things, but it can also be an insect, okay? And it can also be a locust, which is a clean insect, okay? But here's the deal. The writer of this book was Moses himself. He wrote the first 5 books of the Old Testament. And if there was a contradiction between what God gave on Mount Sinai and what God told him to write about the creation account in Genesis, Moses would mention it. He would say something about it because he would see the inconsistency. Because hold on, Lord, you're telling us not to eat unclean animals now, but why did Noah could eat them? But here, and that's one thing. And another thing that people overlook is that actually, if you read a few chapters before the 9th chapter, God gives Noah instructions. Oh, I moved it again. Oops, I moved it again. He gives them instructions of which animals are clean and which are not. Because since day one, okay, atonement for sin, since day one after sin entered the world, that is, there was an atonement for sin, which is a commandment, which is the law, which is the same law that was given in Genesis, in Sinai, sorry. So God already instructed Noah, and he instructed Abel and Cain, and he instructed Adam and Eve. Even though it's not in the account, it makes sense. If Noah knew which animals are clean and unclean, then Adam and Eve, of course they knew. They would not offer an abomination to God. God would tell them, no, this is not acceptable to me. So already God tells him, these are the animals that are unclean, these are the animals that are clean. Only the clean ones you can offer to me as sacrifices. So to conclude that Noah offered clean animals on the altar as a sin offering but then ate unclean animals is inconsistent. Okay, and that would be mentioned by Moses if it was the case. But since Moses wrote those books, it was common sense. Of course, God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He doesn't change. His laws are a direct expression of his character. It's not just like a law of the state that can change tomorrow or some. No, these are internal. This is part of who God actually is. He doesn't change his laws, and that's important to understand. And so, what did I mean that his laws even existed in heaven? Well, when Satan rebelled against God, it was counted to him as sin. And we're not told this, but most likely there were warnings there. Either God told his creation in heaven what is acceptable to him, and disobedience will lead to serious consequences. Or he warned Satan, hey, if you're gonna keep doing this, because it probably took time to gather all the angels, deceive them against God, and obviously God knew what's going on, and God, he told him, Satan, you gotta stop. If you keep doing this, you're gonna be in trouble. So eventually it was counted as sin because it was a direct violation against God's character. It was a disobedience, okay? So God's laws existed since eternity. There's no argument about it. That is in Scripture, which I mentioned, okay? So let's read the 9th chapter real quick. That's Genesis 9. Genesis 9. A beautiful chapter. Okay, so God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And the fear of you and dread of you shall be on every beast on the earth, on every bird of the air, on all that move on the earth, and all that fish in the sea. Okay? They are given into your hand. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. Okay? This is important. I have given you all things, even as the green herbs. But you shall not eat the flesh with its life, that is its blood. Okay, let me stop here. These two verses, verse 3 and verse 4, are super crucial. Okay, verse 3 shows, this is what they use in that article as well, to say, see, God gives Noah all living things to eat, including pigs and lobsters, snakes, bats, rats. It's all good. He can eat it. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Just because he says all the things, you have to look at it in context, because a few chapters before he told him which ones are clean and which are not. And just because he tells all, it doesn't mean all. Just like he told Adam and Eve, all the herbs and all the nuts and all the trees and everything will be for you for food. Okay, if we take it by the word, which many people do, unfortunately, then they were allowed to eat poisonous vegetation, like poison ivy, and they were snacking on stinging nettle, and of course not. That is crazy. People have to look at these scriptures, all scriptures, with a spiritual heart, not only by the letter and the word and the verse, and you gotta look at it with spiritual eyes, otherwise you won't understand. Okay, let me keep going here. Verse 4 is also crucial, because he basically tells him, but you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is its blood. Here's another commandment that's in the Torah, way before Mount Sinai, on black and white, and he tells them, do not drink the blood of the animal and don't eat it raw, so you're gonna eat its life. You're not supposed to eat souls. That's what the Aztecs and the Mayans did. They ate the souls of not only animals, they ate the souls of humans, and that's an abomination. That God hates it. You see, his laws are eternal. There's no doubt about it. Okay, let me keep reading. I don't want to make it too long. Surely for your lifeblood I will manned and reckoning. From the hand of every beast I will require it, and from the hand of man, from the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life of man. Here's another commandment, not to murder, okay? Officially given before Sinai. That's verse 6. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man. And as for you, okay, that was a commandment. Don't shed man's blood. Don't kill. Don't murder. It wasn't given officially in Sinai. It was given in Genesis. Nothing new under the sun, guys. Bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply in it. Then God spoke to Noah and his sons with him, saying, and as for me, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and every living creature that is with you, the birds, the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you, of all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth, that I establish my covenant with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood. Never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. So in verse 8, he establishes a covenant with Noah, okay? So he doesn't only establishes a covenant with Abraham and the Israelites in Mount Sinai and with the world after Jesus. He makes covenants, okay? Those covenants are agreements, okay? That's what they are. You know, you keep your side of the agreement, I keep my side of the agreement, and we both benefit. Noah kept his side of the agreement. Noah was considered righteous. That's why God made a covenant with him and made a promise. Same thing with Abraham. Abraham was considered righteous, so he made a covenant with them. The Israelites, however, failed. But you see, just because God makes a covenant with somebody, it doesn't mean his laws are no longer apply. And this is proven right here, because God made a covenant with Noah, and his covenant still stands. Those laws still stand. He made a covenant with Abraham. His laws still stand. And he also made a covenant with the Israelites. The Israelites disobeyed, but his laws still stand. The only thing that changed was another agreement, a better one, with Jesus. It was just better terms, better agreement. That's all it is. God's laws didn't change. They were always the same. Okay, so that'll be it for this one. I hope you guys really get something from this. And I wanted to say that in order to understand Scripture, you really don't need teachers. Just pray about it and really humble yourself. Really humble yourself. Become like a child if you really want to understand Scripture beyond just the Word. And that's the trap that many people fall into. They read word by word, and that was the mistake of the Israelites as well. They couldn't understand Torah. All they would see is letters. You know, they were not able to see the Spirit. And most believers, unfortunately, they fall in the same trap today. They can't see the spirit of the words. They only see the letters. They only see the physical matter. Okay? All right. So, love you all. See ya.